Welcome back to the table. Today, Ryan and I are taking a look at a worker placement game called Ryozen. This one is from Tabula Games, and it's pretty accessible, but at the same time, can be a little bit mean.
Yeah, I mean, it is, like David said, a worker placement where you're going to be placing these tokens down, and these tokens represent the kin of your clan, as they're called. And each player is going to take on the role of one of these clans in the land of Ryozen. The whole premise of the game is that there's this palace in the center, and this palace is going to actually be rotating as you play the game. And within the center of this palace is a mighty phoenix. And this phoenix is going to bestow its blessing onto one of us, but only the clan that achieves the most favor. So you're basically going around the different districts of Ryozen, performing actions in order to accrue the most favor points and, make that phoenix happy.
Yeah, and that is the flavor. Now, the mechanics of the game, like I said, are worker placement, but you're not only placing these kin down to take actions, but you're also going to be sort of vying for position or area majority in these different sectors on the board. The game is broken down into 3 rounds, and each round has 3 phases. The first round of each phase is the day phase. The day phase is where you're going to be taking turns, alternating around the board, placing these workers, and we'll get to that in a second because it's kind of interesting, to take the action. Then, after everyone's done that, you move on to the night phase, where you're going to basically look for area majority in all of the sectors around the board, including the Phoenix Palace, and you're going to get the nighttime benefits if you're there, and if you have majority, you're going to get a little something else, and those are the moon shards over there.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the in-game scoring concepts, is gathering these moon shards, which you can only get at night, which are part of that area control. So as we're talking about taking actions in some of these spaces, there's really 2 things you need to think about. What you're doing for the day phase, how is that benefiting you now? And will you have enough presence in that district to have area control when it comes to the night phase to earn one of those moon shards? Now, there are, of course, 2 different sides to the board. We're playing on a smaller board because there's just 2 of us. So in a bigger game, there are more spaces, but still not enough. There's not enough spaces for everybody to go there. So you're going to be competing for these spaces as you play as well.
Yeah, another cool thing about the day phase is when you're placing, you're going to place either unveiled, which is sort of the kin side up, or veiled, which is kin side down. When you do that, you have to pay a coin to do so. Now, why do you want to do that? Because if you're cloaked, you're going to be worth 2 during the night phase for the area majority calculation. However, if you do kin side up and the kin you're placing has a special power, you're going to be able to use that power immediately when you place it too. And some of these powers is a little bit where the meanness can come into the game.
Well, yeah, definitely. Everybody starts with 6 kin, 5 regular apprentices with no ability, and 1 fighter that can perform a hit on another kin that's in that same location, which is a pretty good starting ability.
Yeah.
But as you progress, you're going to be able to upgrade these apprentices into stronger kin, each with their own variety of abilities. And every kin is different. We all have the same kind of within our player color, but the way that they come out is going to be kind of random. So we should talk about how you upgrade kin, and then we can kind of go around the board and talk about the different actions.
Yeah, upgrading kin is just one of the 6 main sectors. We're going to finish with that one, in fact. We're going to start here at the gate. The gate is where you're going to start during the night phase. It's sort of the central location, if you will. When you go to the gate, you're simply going to place a worker and take a spark, which is one of the 3 resources, and potentially get rid of one of these event cards. At the beginning of each round, event cards are going to be placed out. The ones we've seen are mostly bad.
Well, yeah.
You generally want to go there, and you can discard, by going there, one of those event cards. Now, when I said they're all bad, they're usually bad to varying degrees for the players at the table. So you might want to get rid of one that's particularly bad for you, given the state of the board, and maybe less bad for the other player.
Right. Since they come out at the beginning of the round, you get to see what they affect. They might cause a player that's in the lead to spend some resources, or in a particular location may have to discard something. So if you know that you can avoid that location, or you can plan on getting rid of that card. However, if you see some player is really being hurt by one of those cards, maybe it's in your best interest to keep it, even if it's hurting you a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a realm of strategy in deciding whether or not to remove those event cards or not.
Yeah, and the next section is the capital section. When you go here, you're simply going to take a scroll, yet another one of the resources, and then you're going to adjust this board right here, which is going to have every player represented. You're going to take your piece to the very top and then shift everyone else down. This is not player order, but it is the tiebreaker sort of hierarchy. And there's going to be a lot of ties, obviously, during the area majority thing. So this is a place you're going to want to come to do that so that you could potentially win that majority even if you're tied.
Yeah, and then we have two worker placement spots here that actually kind of function together as the village. You have the rim, which is over here, and the shrine that's over here. This space actually lets you move your building marker across these buildings and build more buildings as you go, giving you potentially more abilities to use to gain more resources. Of course, you have to come over here to the shrine location that then lets you activate those. So it's not just about building these buildings, although you can get a lot of points for building them. But coming back here and activating some of them can be a really great way, and in fact, one of the only real ways to get resources during the actual round.
Yeah, it's definitely a twofold process because you want to get as far as you can on here, because when you do take the shrine activation, you are taking any one village space that you've explored. So the further you're across, the more variety of things you have to take from. The next space here is the springs. Now, when you go here, you'll note in a two-player game, again, this is another place where it's just one spot.
Yeah.
I also want to point out some of these spots are going to require costs. Some of them don't. But when you go here, you're going to pay 1 coin in a two-player game, and you're simply going to be able to take one of these cards.
Yeah, these revelation cards, as they're called, can do 2 things. Actually, 3 things, really. They can give you an ongoing effect that just happens passively. They can give you a direct effect that's going to have you discard the card for a certain effect, or they can give you scoring. And they're all going to have some combination of those different things. And they all cost scrolls. Of course, the higher the scroll cost, the better the ability should be. But whether or not it's good for you in your particular situation or not is dependent. So there's a whole timing element here too, because every time somebody takes one of these revelation cards, you're going to be replacing them with a new one.
And that brings us to the last sector that we want to talk about around the Phoenix Palace, and that is the clan house. Like we mentioned earlier, this is where you're going to be able to acquire more and different kin into your stack of 6 tiles here to use during future rounds, or potentially even in the first round if you acquire one there early in the first round. Now, you're going to be placing a tile there. You're going to be then taking one of the clan tiles off of your stack and adding it to the end of the track. Then you can purchase one of your kin. Obviously, you can't purchase the other player's kin. We all have the same kin in those stacks, but they're shuffled up at the beginning of the game, and like Ryan said, they come out randomly. You're going to purchase one, any one of the ones available, and pay the associated costs, immediately taking it and either replacing one of the apprentice or any tile that you currently have in your hand, or replacing one that you already have on the board. Now, from that point forward, you're going to be able to use that kin to use its ability and effectively play the game. Those abilities are going to fire off just like the fighter. As soon as you place it in a space, you'll be able to do a thing.
Yeah, and these do a wide variety. I mean, there are a ton of different kin. Some of them are going to remove your opponent's pieces from the board. Some of them are going to allow you to swap positions. Some of them are going to allow you to duplicate the abilities of different kin you already have on the board. All of this is kind of in service of that area control element, trying to knock off other players' pieces, or basically ensure that you maintain control of an area when it comes time for that nighttime phase.
Yeah, and then the last section here is the Phoenix Palace. Now, the Phoenix Palace plays 2 different roles when you go there. One, you can't go there cloaked. You have to go there kin side up. So you will be able to use your power, you just won't be able to sort of enhance your presence there. When you go here, you can do one of 2 things. First, you can take any one resource if you want. If you do that, you then rotate it 1 space. The other thing you could do is spend 1 spark, which is one of the probably harder to come by resources, in order to take the action of one of the spaces that are highlighted by this central circle. You can see in a 2-player game, there are 2 sections highlighted. In a 3- and 4-player game, you use a different board that actually highlights 3 different sectors. But this allows you to take the action of a section or a sector that may be filled up already, or something that you wanted to duplicate and take a second time.
Yeah, and again, this is all about timing, because if you're trying to set yourself up to redo an action, maybe that David had gone here and I want to retake that action, I'm trying to set up for that, but David might go there and rotate the tower past that spot, in which case, you kind of have to adjust your plans on the fly. Now, it's important though, because you can put multiple people there, and at the end of the round, you're still going to score for them. So it's not like you're missing out. You're getting resources and effectively getting points during the nighttime phase.
Yeah, and that brings us to the nighttime phase, because once all the players have played all of their kin out onto the board, you move on to the nighttime phase. And again, starting at the gate and going around and finishing with the palace, you're going to get the nighttime bonus for each of those sections. These are going to be a combination of points or resources. And everyone who has presence in any given sector is going to get that bonus. However, whoever has area majority is going to get one of those moon shards, and there's different colored moon shards all around the board. 3
different colors, actually. You'll see this divided into the 6 sectors. Every 2 sectors provides one of the different colors, effectively. Right. And you're going to collect these in 2 different ways. You're either looking for sets of the same color or having one of each color in order to score points. You get more points for having all 3 of the same color, but of course it's harder to do because you're going to have to maintain control of some of these areas over and over again if you want to maybe get 3. There's only 3 rounds in the game.
Yeah.
So getting 3 of a color can be quite the task. However, you can try to manage it so that you'll get more than one of these per round, but it's difficult because everybody's fighting for control. Everyone's fighting for these moon shards.
That is absolutely the case. These are the single biggest element of the end game scoring. So if you're not scoring points during the game, you're probably going to be collecting moon shards and scoring them that way. And again, some of those kin can really come into play to affect that area majority, like we said. So those are going to be the kind of things you want to do to get that majority. Now, the last thing in the night phase is the Phoenix Palace. Here, you're simply going to get, in a 2-player game anyway, 2 points per kin that you have at the Phoenix Palace. So you could just keep going there and get your points throughout the game that way.
Yeah, and something worth noting about that too is anytime that you knock off somebody's kin, they don't remove from the game. They actually go to that tower. So you might be taking away area control from them, but you're still contributing to them getting 2 points. It almost feels like a compensation. It's not the end of the world when you get knocked off, though it does still kind of hurt a little bit.
Yeah, now in a 3- and 4-player game, you're just getting 1 point per kin there. But the other big benefit there is whoever has area majority at the Phoenix Palaces is going to get the first player token, which in any worker placement game can be a very important thing to have.
It can be, but of course this is an area control game. So going last still has its benefits because you can kind of see where everybody has gone. There's that moment when you have the last worker in place and you know that you can kind of shift the balance. It's a pretty powerful place to be.
Yeah, I mean, based on our plays, the one character or one kin in particular, the diplomat, a lot of the ones with the juicier powers are going to obviously end up being the ones that people hold on to towards the end, and then really change things up with the area majority. So it's probably one of the, I mean, it's not too mean.
You could say it's a mean game. It's meant to be kind of a mean game. You could say that.
It is for sure. It's definitely a highly interactive worker placement game, unlike I've ever seen, because the way that, first of all, you bring that area majority in there, so there's another level of thinking to what you're trying to do to combat with other people. But then, with all those other kin, where you're literally removing people and putting them in the middle, shifting, positioning around there, it can be, particularly even a 2-player game, shifting things can be very, obviously with any 2-player game, it's always sort of very one-on-one, head-to-head. And that's what you're going to do round after round, phase after phase. You're going to be doing this the day phase, the night phase, and then of course there is the dawn phase where you clean things up and get everything back. Then you're going to score things up, like we said, with all of those moon shards, but also some of the leftover resources, as well as some of the cards that you picked up over at the spring. High score wins.
Yeah, that's it. High score wins the favor of the Phoenix. Don't forget Phoenix.
Don't forget the flavor. The flavor of the Phoenix. Is that what it is? Anyway, that is Ryozen from Tabula Games. If you have any questions at all, please make them in the comments below or check out their campaign page. We'll try to answer whatever we can. But until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then. Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.